Hey guys, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whichever order you want to take it to you, in whichever part of the world you are, where you are viewing this video. This is the first of my impromptu videos, vlogs, where I am actually putting across my thoughts to you guys. These are my opinions based on my experiences, based on my observations, and based on my analysis. A lot of you people will be agreeing to my views, to my perceptions. A lot of you will disagree to that. I respect each and every person's, differences, their ideas. However, the biggest issue that I wanted to talk to all of you guys, which I have been thinking about for quite some time now, is basically the difference between literacy and education. Now, unfortunately, a lot of the modern generation Indians, and I'm not bothered about the rest of the world. In fact, it does hold true for most of the people that I have come across. It does not matter whether they're Indians or not. Is that they think literacy and education are synonymous. Basically, it's not. Literacy, being literate, simply means that yes, you know to read, you know to write, and that you understand a particular language. That you, when you listen to it, when you read it, you understand what is being said and an idea that is being conveyed to you. Sometimes it's not even that. Sometimes it's just learning how to count, learning how to read and write. That's it. Education, on the other hand, is much more deeper than that, and is a lot more complex and a lot more layered. Our Indian school system, our education system, unfortunately, is much more literacy based rather than education based. Now, the difference in my thoughts, from what I have seen, what I have observed, it does not matter which stream you're studying in, whether it's arts, whether it's science, commerce. It does not matter which language you're studying in. It does not matter which board you're studying in. So, whether it's ICSE, your state board, or whether it's a CBSE, the basic emphasis is given on absolute basic literacy of the subjects. So when I say basic literacy of the subjects, so it's basically how to read, write, and understand that one particular subject. Let's say, for example, English, or any regional language, or whether it's maths, or whether it's science, or whether it's commerce. Education comes when you know what to do with that particular knowledge. So literacy helps you gather the knowledge, and what do you do with that knowledge? Okay, how do you apply it? That's where education comes into the picture. Now, yes, there are certain streams where people do try to focus on education, how to do, what to do, where to do, whether you should do or apply your knowledge or not. Obviously, that comes from experience, that comes from wisdom. But education is a lot more layered. I'll give you one very small example. There is a University of Science College near one of my homes, and this particular institute basically is a postgraduate study institution where a lot of people go ahead, do their master's degrees, they do their doctorate, they do their thesis, they work out on their own, on their own subjects. Now, you would say that these guys are all educated. Fair enough, they are educated, they're doing their master's degree, they're doing their doctorate. Without a certain level of knowledge, without a certain level of literacy, you cannot go up to that particular point. Now, their physics department, now this is a real story, by the way, I'm just not giving out any names or any places. Their physics department was funded by an external organization. Now they had received funds. What happened basically was, now since everything was computerized, everything was running on computers, they had battery backup systems, USBs, and everything. I mean, they had a excellent series of network and everything. Now they had to replace the batteries for the backup systems for every system that was there in the building, in the physics department. So the big wigs, they sat down, they calculated the cost, they floated tenders, they got different organizations to come in to submit their tenders, what the cost would be for replacing all the batteries and getting it maintained and things like that. And everything was said. The people, the think tank, they had gathered together in one particular room one evening meeting to finalize whether it would be feasible to spend the allotted funds on something as meager as maintaining battery backup systems for computers, or whether they would spend it for something else. There's this guy working there in the physics lab. He's basically the lab assistant. Did not know how to read and write, but his job basically was to ensure that all the equipment in the lab was in its proper place, whether it was maintained or not, students being students, that they don't mishandle things and such and such. So he was there that day. He was basically serving tea, snacks, coffee, whatever, while the discussion was going on. He interrupted and he told them that according to his own opinion, they really did not need to spend all that much of money going ahead and working on those batteries. So the head of the department said, but what do you know? You can't read, right? Why? Then he said that I have been working with the college for quite some time. I have been maintaining the lab equipment for quite some time. I have heard students discuss their, equipment, how they work, and things like that. They're basically whatever the students discuss, their studies. So he said that I think I can go ahead and maintain the batteries by myself. You really do not need to spend all that amount of money outside. So the head of the department simply said, okay, fine, fair enough. You've got this particular idea. Go ahead, find out the state of the batteries. Let me know. 2-3 days after that particular meeting, this head of the department goes ahead and asks this lab assistant, okay, fine, what did you find out? So the lab assistant immediately trotted out, he pulled out a paper from his pocket and he said, okay, there are so many batteries around the physics campus. These many are in working order. These are the places where they are. These are the number of batteries that just need slight maintenance, which I can do myself. And these are the number of batteries which need to be replaced. That's it. They basically rolled with it. They asked the lab assistant to go ahead and do whatever minor maintenance he needs to do, and the number of batteries they needed replaced, they replaced it. Ended up at what, 5 to 6% of the cost that they were estimating. Yeah, 5 to 6% of the cost that they were estimating. I'm not saying it wrong. So that's the difference between literacy and education. The lab assistant was not literate. And when I say not literate, I mean really not literate. He did not know how to read, write. He's a thumb impression guy. Yet, he was educated enough to do a certain job which the rest of the educated people were not able to think of. So education does not come from literacy. Education comes from using your powers of observation. Education comes from using your knowledge of what you have observed. Education comes from analyzing that knowledge, that observation, that experience, and then doing something with it. I have an opposite example as well. This is in one of the IT hubs in the city that I stay in, and there was a traffic issue. There was some road maintenance going on. There was some traffic issue, and the other lane was blocked. So basically, traffic, instead of flowing in two different lanes, they were flowing in one single lane in two different directions, due to which the traffic had to be maintained in such a way that the traffic had to be staggered, which means I'm supposed to be moving forward in this particular lane, and but I can only move forward for a certain amount of time before they stop and they allow the opposite traffic to come through that single lane, because the other lane was being maintained, they were working on it, it was not available. So it was a staggered stop and go movement. Everybody knew about it, everybody working in that particular place knew about it, and everybody adjusted according to it, because they knew that okay, this is how it was going to be for quite a few months. In fact, it was already over a month, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, it was already over 30 days that this system was in place. I was there, I was waiting for the the signal to go so that we can move forward. The rest of the lane was kept vacant so that oncoming traffic would come onto it. When suddenly a very well dressed young woman in her own car, she overtakes the single lane, goes onto the empty portion of the road, and simply goes straight forward, when everybody knows that that portion of the road was left vacant so that oncoming traffic would come through it. And she simply went. Oncoming traffic had by the time already been released, and she stopped in front of an oncoming vehicle. This woman, who calls herself educated, stopped traffic for 30 minutes while people were going to work, simply because she wanted to. It's not that that was a system that had just happened that day or a couple of days or 3 days beforehand. I mean, it was over 30 days that was how traffic was moving in that particular place. And she admitted to the cop that yes, she knew that this was the case, but she still wanted to go. She wanted the oncoming traffic to move back so that she could move ahead and go to her workplace. Whereas the rest of the traffic were very patiently waiting until the oncoming traffic was stopped and we let go. I don't know if I have been able to make you understand this entire thing or not. She called herself educated. She's not. And this entire scenario, both of these scenarios basically, where one of the persons was not literate but educated, and one of the persons was literate but definitely not educated, is so prevalent in our culture in this age of social media nowadays, that most of our youth, and when I say most of our youth, I'm talking about people between the ages of, let's say, 15 to about 20, 22, 15 to 22. They are literate. They've gone to schools. They know how to read and write. But they're definitely not educated. And it shows up in the way they think, in the way they express themselves, specifically with the advent of social media, specifically, like Twitter, YouTube, TikTok. I don't know whatever TikTok is, I've never used it. whatever videos I have seen of TikTok, I mean, they really don't make any sense. Most of them, they don't make any sense. And other various other social media, Facebook, for example. Okay. Now, the social media itself is not bad. The platforms itself, they are not really all that bad. But the issue is, okay, when they say that yes, I have the freedom to say things, they really do not understand what freedom of speech means. Now, this freedom of speech thing, and I'm putting it in quotes, air quotes, comes from the American concept of the First Amendment. I think First Amendment, yeah, First Amendment. They have the freedom of speech, they can say anything. They really don't understand what freedom of speech means, most of them. And we Indians, we take on that mantle. Most of them have taken on that mantle of freedom of speech. Except they really do not understand what freedom of speech means. Just because you can say anything does not mean that you should say anything. Context matters, time, place matters, the subject matters, and your level of intelligence and education matters. And again, when I say education, I really do not mean that you need to be learned, that you need to carry degrees. That any person with a common sense can have education. Unfortunately, our youth, they are literate, yes, but they are not educated. The fact can be verified by the very, very biggest sense that India enrolls about 15 million, if I'm not wrong, 15 million students every year in various engineering science courses across all levels of colleges and universities and everything across the country. Less than half of them get employed. Yeah, educations can be, the institutes can be blamed for a part of it. But the major thing that I have seen, and I'm not talking only engineers, majority, even MBA students, the moment they graduate, whether they're engineers, whether they're MBA students, they expect that they will get a desk job in a room or in a cabin with AC, with all the trappings, all the furnishings, and they can start off with big time salaries. That's not the truth. These students really do not understand that if you really want to run a company, either you're born into a family that already runs that company, or two, you need to have the creativity, the skills, the knowledge, the education to reach that position. You cannot have that unless you start from the bottom and start climbing up. This basic fact is what is missing, and which is not accepted by the youth of our country, and that saddens me. Now, I'm going to leave you with this particular statement, this particular fact. A lot of you will agree with it, a lot of you will disagree with it. I've got no issues with it. But for people who would like to disagree with it, and even for people who would like to agree with it, please state facts and do not speak emotionally on this one. I have been working for 22 years. I have been in the training industry. I have been training people how to work so that they can get work and things like that. My core experience across various industries, people have very big expectations without the knowledge that the level of skills that they have do not match their expectations, and they really do not want to work on it. I'm not saying all of them, There are quite a few people who have worked on it. I have known several people like that who have worked on their skills, who have, shed their blood, their sweat, and they have reached whatever their dreams are, or even they are on the on their way of doing it. Majority of us Indians, the new youth, as we call it, they are not. They are lazy. They are living off their parents' hard work, and they think that they are entitled to do the same thing without doing any hard work. This needs to change. If India needs to grow faster, if India needs to become a real power in the world geopolitical and economical scenario, in this particular situation, the youth need to change. They really need to start using their brains. They really need to start finding out how they can do things, and they really need to understand the very basic fact: you really need to work hard before you can start working smart. And if you are lazy, and if you think that you are entitled to a few good things just because your parents worked hard for it, then you are wrong. And that is where the difference between literacy and education comes into the picture. They are literate, they are just not educated enough. Maybe their parents are to blame, maybe the schools, the colleges, the institutes are to blame, maybe we people who really have worked hard, and including their parents, we are to blame. Maybe they do not have enough role models. But whatever is the case, this needs to change, this needs to work out, and the people themselves need to think on how to get it done. So I'm going to put it up on my channel, and I'm going to push it across. Please like, please share, please subscribe, and I'll leave the comments on. However, let me inform you that comments that are derogatory, vulgar, and which are not on topic will be deleted. Otherwise, please go ahead. This is an open forum. Discuss, present your viewpoints, present facts, please, either for or against. And based upon the comments that I get, I will do a part 2 of the same video. Thank you. Enjoy yourselves. Have a great day wherever you are. We'll see you again.